Hey guys and gals, welcome back to the channel and to another watch review. So before I get started with this, a little bit of backstory on how I got to review this watch and some other ones that are coming up. 6 months or so ago, one of the random times I happened to be actually home, I was in a coffee shop and happened to come out of the bathroom, and a guy intercepted me and said, "Hey, you look familiar." As it turns out, he'd seen a couple of my YouTube videos, hopefully only the good ones, and we struck up a conversation. And as it turns out, he's a big Seiko fanatic like I am, and I presume some of you guys are as well. And we struck up a conversation, and one of the watches he mentioned that he was getting, or had at the time, is this awesome MarineMaster. And he was nice enough to let me shoot it for him. So I want to thank him so much. His name is Mitch. I'll link his Instagram below. Check him out. He's been nice enough to let me take a look at both this watch along with an SKX and a Patty Turtle that are coming up soon enough. So you guys are freaking awesome, and thanks so much to Mitch for letting me check this watch out. So with that said, I don't want to get too much of a long introduction going, but the MarineMaster is a natural fit to do a review on this channel. You guys know I am a Seiko fanatic, and customary wristwatch check. I'm wearing my Seiko Sumo today. You guys know I love my Monster. You guys know I love Seiko in general, and I just have nothing but nice things to say about them. Usually, I've had a couple exceptions to that rule, but the MarineMaster is a watch I've been itching to get my hands on. And so without further ado, thanks to my friend Mitch here, we're able to take a look at one. So let's go ahead and just check this guy out. All right guys, so here we can see the SBDX017, also known as the Seiko Marine Master 300. It's my understanding this watch is unfortunately discontinued, but hey, lucky for us, we get to check one out. So this is one of those watches that is really more than you probably would really pick up on the surface. If to the untrained eye, it looks like maybe a slightly nicer version of, say, my Seiko Sumo, but this actually is a very special watch. And it can trace its history back to the 1960s, basically the same time that the Submariner and Rolex came out. Seiko's been making dive watches just as long as Rolex has and some of these other ones, and so this watch definitely has a great history. But what's so nice about this watch is just little details on it that it gets so right. But before we get into all that, let's just kind of talk about some of the high-level specs of this. So we're looking at a 44.3 millimeter case. I believe it's about 14.6 in thickness. You guys know I'm more of a movement kind of guy. This has the Cal 8L35. Again, that's 8L35. Now, what you guys may not know about this movement is actually it's an undecorated, unregulated version of the GS 9S55 movement. GS being Grand Seiko. So Grand Seiko actually uses the same movement in this watch. In their Grand Seikos, they just happen to do some decoration and regulation on it. Now, because the movement is unregulated, your time out of the box can vary. Plus 15, minus 10 seconds per day is what Seiko quotes it as. I know some of these come out of the box plus or minus a second a day. It's kind of luck of the draw. It is unregulated, but it is, again, the 8L35. It's a 26 jewel automatic. It's going to have everything you'd expect from a Seiko movement. So it's going to give you your hacking. It's going to give you your hand winding. It's going to give you a 50-hour power reserve, which is always a nice feature. The watch itself comes with some nice things. It comes with Bright markers. Unfortunately, when I shot this video, we shot it in a bright lit coffee shop, so I really can't show you guys the lume, but this watch has incredible lume. And Mitch and I were talking about the watch. He says he goes into his bedroom at night and this thing lights up the ceiling. It's so damn bright, which is just incredible. It has a 300 meter water resistance, which is roughly about 1,000 feet, which is basically what you would find with other dive watches in this segment. And it is a little bit on the heavier side, which I like. It's about 201 grams, which is right in where I like, and what I feel comfortable with. And one of the things about this watch that is extremely interesting is it's a monoblock design. So what does a monoblock design mean? That means that the case is one solid piece. There's no case back on this watch. And I'll be honest, it's something I didn't really pick up on when I was looking at it either. But what the thought process is in this is, if you remove a case back from a watch, it's one less orifice for water to seep into the case. And so you have one less thing you need to worry about, and you get that much better, in theory, water tightness. What that means for this watch is it's actually all assembled from the front. So the movement would be loaded in through the face, and then the Hardlex crystal would be stuck on top of it. And yes, you did hear me right, this watch does use Hardlex crystal. And I can understand there's going to be those of you out there that are a little upset about that for this watch being a $2,000 plus proposition. The thought process with Seiko is they use Hardlex because it has great shatter resistant properties to it. And the nice thing about this crystal too is it actually has AR coating, AR being anti-reflective. Those of you that watch me occasionally or frequently know I like AR a lot, and I give Rolex a lot of crap because Rolex still doesn't use anti-reflective coating. So again, it's a one-way in movement. The crystal is basically what's sealing this watch off. And it's a very interesting design. The case itself is very similar to the case actually on my Seiko Sumo. I really like the way this case feels because it tapers in on the bottom and it really feels really nice on the wrist. It fits the wrist very nicely. The bracelet actually feels very similar as well to my Seiko Sumo, although as you can see here, the clasp has like a glide lock type function, which is obviously night and day better than what you would get on a Sumo or a lower end Seiko. And overall it flows very nicely, it does have solid end links. It is a nice feeling bracelet, although the owner in this case has actually put his traditionally more often than not on a rubber strap that he's picked up that I think it's called a Crafter Blue. I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. Fits this watch really nicely, and I first was thinking I don't know why I would take it off the bracelet, but having seen the Crafter Blue on this watch, I absolutely understand it. Coming around front, we can see, of course, the traditional diving bezel, unidirectional. So you rotate it to the minutes that you want to start counting off, and then as minutes pass by, you'll see them pass along the register and such. You'll be able to track elapsed time. Great, kind of standard diving feature for dive watches. As I joke about in my other videos, you can use this bezel to time anything you want. It flows nicely, it clicks nicely, it feels very solid, and it's overall a very good looking bezel. It's not a ceramic bezel. It's an aluminum-based bezel, I believe, but I have to say that it looks as good as a ceramic bezel. It has really good presence, especially when you compare that to the markers and the dial and the proportions. They all balance each other in a very nice way. The overall aesthetic of this watch feels on par to me as good as, in terms of wrist presence, as a high-end Swiss equivalency. This watch to me has the same presence as a Rolex Submariner would or an Omega Seamaster. It definitely does not look like a cheap watch on the wrist. So those are kind of the overall features of the watch. Here you can see we have a little bit of an engraving on the crown. I do have to say, I do think the crown actually on the Seiko Sumo is slightly better than this, since you have the extra grips and this little carved S. Here it's a much shallower engraving and the crown isn't quite as called out. Same position, Seiko likes to do these crowns between 4 and 5 o'clock roughly. And they work nicely down there. It's nice because it doesn't dig into your wrist. And you can also see here there's also a nice little engraving on the case back itself, which of course is a nice touch. Something, again, I give Rolex for all the time crap, because I think watches should have engraving on the case back. It's something that I really appreciate and I like to see it done properly. So overall, here's what you have. You have an incredible diving instrument. You have, as I mentioned with every Seiko, an in-house movement that has some incredible features. As I mentioned, this is basically a unregulated, unfinished version of a Grand Seiko movement, but this is significantly cheaper than a Grand Seiko. I grant you $2,000 is not cheap for a watch, and these are a little bit more than $2,000, but you are getting a very high quality watch with a solid depth rating, and it's every bit as good as a Swiss watch equivalency you're going to get in this price range. What else are you going to get for roughly the $2,000 price range that you think you can do better? If you're looking at something Swiss, even some of the nicer ones like an Oris or maybe a used Jaeger-LeCoultre or Omega Seamaster, a lot of those are going to have ETA-based movements in them. They're not going to be anything special. Here you have Seiko all through the gamut of everything in this watch is Seiko in-house, which is some of the things that I tout about why I like Rolex so much. They're all in-house. You're getting, something completely developed in-house by Seiko. The watch is made in Japan. If you take a look at the literature that came with this watch, everything is in Japanese, which I absolutely love. There's just this bespoke, vision of what Seiko thinks a dive watch should be. The watch feels special, the watch looks special, the watch is rare. And it's a great instrument. It doesn't come with any of that status prestige that clouds people's judgment. I think it's just a pure diving instrument, and you just appreciate it as that. There's no, subliminal messaging about who you are and your income. It's just a solid mechanical timepiece that is just well made, well put together. And frankly, I'd be happy to own, and I gather that Mitch is very happy to own his. And I really, really appreciate him sharing it with me, and it's really cool to check one of these out. And who knows, as things go, eventually I may end up buying one myself. With all that said, guys, I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. I genuinely really like this watch, and I think for $2,000 or less, this is my pick for the best dive watch you can get out there. There's one of these things I just can't really put to words, but Seiko has a special feel about them, and they're higher end watches, and this watch feels nice. It really does. If there's anything that lets it down, I would say that's the crown. I think could be a little bit better decorated, and the bracelet is not the best. Seiko's not known for making great bracelets. It does have push pins in it, but the Patek Philippe I distributed for $50,000 also had push pins, so we can play that game too. But he's put his on a nice rubber strap, and I think overall it's a really solid package. And I think compared to other watches in the price range, I think it's an awesome, awesome option, and I think you should strongly consider it. So there you go, guys. There's a quick look at the Seiko Marine Master 300 SBDX17. Really hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Please stay tuned. As I said, I'm going to be shooting one of his Patties and his SKXs coming up. I have a ton of Patek Philippe's coming up. I have a ton more Rolexes coming up. I got lots of stuff coming up. It's good to finally be back. So please let me know what you think. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and go ahead and click that bell icon so you guys are notified about my new videos. Appreciate it so much. Love this forum. Love being able to review this stuff and sharing the passion of watches with all of you. Also, thanks again for checking out my Coach Anthony motivational speaking channel, which I'll keep plugging because it's a passion project for me. But all that said, guys, really hope you enjoyed the review. Take care, and I'll catch you guys real soon.